All right, 3,
That
2,
was Klinger's team and MASH.
And we are live. Let's go.
Which camera? On this, we're only using one camera. Hi, folks. Welcome to our Saturday Night Live in support of our Purple Heart Project. Very special cameraman tonight. Speaking of Purple Heart Project, Jake is lounging somewhere, not here. He's in Kanosh. Throw a dart at the state of Utah. If you hit right in the middle, you hit Kanosh. There are 304 people there tonight. Anyway, Danny Bell is behind us. I don't know if you can do a spin around, can you? Don't think you can.
Yeah, it's not worth it. Don't worry about it.
Don't break your nose doing a selfie.
They don't need to see my face.
Oh, if I had one of my chisels, I could have held it up like that. Showing you. So Danny's behind the camera, so if it's a little wiggly, bear with us. First time molding that.
Second.
Second?
Remember last time I was here, Jake threw it on my back and made me walk around in circles with it?
Oh, yeah, right. Forgot that. And we got Chris here tonight. We got Sean there, who was a student this week, but he came early. We got Moose over here. We got Frick behind the scene. How come we don't have your big green globe on?
I forgot. Sorry.
Wouldn't think I have to remind you that. So anyway, tonight's topic is shooting boards. Subject dear to my heart. Got some really interesting stuff to share with you. We're only on for an hour tonight because we're going to do our second hour on Thursday night in the middle of our class. This will be class number 16. And to date we've had 109 combat wounded vets through the program, so we'll be 115 after this week. Frick, how are we for numbers?
We're at 193 already.
Sweet. Okay, well, wait till we get
200.
up there a little bit and then we'll do some more. You want to throw one at me right now?
Sure. This one comes from Fred Robbins in Yamhill, Oregon.
Hey, Fred, where?
Yamhill?
Yamhill, I've been there.
What is the thickness of the plywood used in your shooting board?
Well, let me explain what the purpose is, just in case you don't know, and that'll make more sense. So, your shooting board has to hold the workpiece. Dan, can you get over here?
Yep.
Your shooting board has to hold the workpiece up into the blade, because your blade doesn't go all the way to the bottom. So it's got to be elevated so it gets up into there. Now, we use Baltic birch, and it's metric sized. So when they give a nominal size, it's not really what it sounds like it is. So this is 1/2 inch, sold as 1/2 inch, comes in at 7/16. So that's what we use. Now we used to use 1/4 inch, but if you look on the bottom of a plane, usually there's enough slop in the throat. There's enough slop on the sides of the throat. If you look, Dan, can you see that?
Yep.
Can you see over here? Do you see the gap here?
Let me get it.
With the white background.
All right, hit it.
Right there, there's enough slop between the side of the plane and the blade that you could easily move the blade all the way over to one side or the other, and then 1/4 inch wouldn't be enough. So we decided to go with 1/2 inch. So 7/16 in real numbers, we buy it as 1/2 inch. I was going to piece of wood. So that's what I use. Next, Frick.
You explain the thickness? Sorry, I wasn't paying
Yeah, I just did.
Okay. Sammy Hayes in Austin, Texas.
Hey, Sandy.
Have you built or considered...
No, not Austin.
What?
Houston. Yeah. Dallas. You're in Dallas? No, yeah. Oh, Dallas, okay. Go ahead, sorry.
Have you built or considered building / selling an attachment for the side of a plane to lessen the wear on the hand?
Yeah, we've been working on that for ever. So I'll tell the story a little bit behind that. When I was over in England in 2005, went over and I shot a video with Alan Peters in his shop. It was called The Alan Peters Approach. Buy it. And Alan had, I wish I had taken pictures of it. Did phones have cameras in 2005, Frick?
Barely.
If they did, they were very low quality. It'd be flip phones.
That's why I didn't take a picture of it. Anyway, so we had this little handle that fit. Now, he always used the number 7. That's the 5.5. There's the number 7. But it was this handle that just fit on there, and it just was great. If I have a lot of shooting to do, I actually put a glove on because it really wears and just tears up your hand. Because all you can really do is just stick that meaty part of your palm in this somewhat of a wedged area. So we are in the process of working on that, but I don't have anything for you just yet. Wish I did, because I'd like to be using it. However, just as a side note, we just received this last week, at the most 2 weeks ago. So this is a Stanley number 50 and 51. 50 was the steel or cast iron shooting board, and 51 was the plane. So this is a regular tote, rear handle off a plane, but it's on a bit of an angle like that. And it actually feels really good. But I'll talk more about this as questions come in about it, because there is a downside to it. But no is the answer to your question, but actively working on it. And shout out to Sean McDermott. Sean has sent me some samples that he's been playing with. Just haven't quite got it yet. And Alan up in Ontario. Alan sent me some, and another guy from Australia recently sent us something that was done on, what is that thing where you, liquid plastic, and you, what's it called?
Resin?
No.
Are you talking about the Plastidip?
No. 3D printer. It was made on a 3D printer. But I just haven't found something that I just said, oh, yes. Still working on it. Next, Frick, please.
Next one comes from Toby in Wisconsin.
About halfway through, mind me to talk about this. Toby in Wisconsin.
Yep. What's your thoughts and opinions on multifunction shooting board, meaning one that would have interchangeable fences for 90 degree, 45 degree, etc.?
Well, when we make ours, and for this reason, when we make ours, we glue it in place first, and then we screw it in four screws from the bottom side. I can't have any movement. I can't have any movement. Now, this one actually is adjustable, but I like it to be rock solid. I would rather have two shooting boards that I knew that fence was not going to move than to have something that had a bit of adjustment in it. As soon as you put a bit of adjustment, it's like this. Combination square, great tool, right? Because you can use it as a 45, you can use it as 90, but they're not as precise as a steel square. You can go in and file them and get it that way, but anytime you add a second function, there's always got to be, there's always got to be a little bit of sacrifice. And I can't sacrifice the precision of a shooting board, of a purpose-made shooting board. Sorry. Not in my DNA. Next, Rick.
Okay, next one comes from Dave.
Hey, Dave. Where's Dave?
Somewhere in the U.S., doesn't say specifically.
Somewhere in the U.S. Well, that's a little place.
Rob, what's your opinion of ramped shooting boards?
Yeah.
Pros and cons.
So let me explain. There's Cato smiling at you, Moose. So a ramp shooting board is, whereas this plane stays parallel to the bench, they have it on a ramp, so your plane is actually running down on an angle. And the idea is that when I plane this piece of wood, if this is 3/4 of an inch, it's actually 13/16 of an inch thick, it's always using the same 13/16 of an inch of the blade. So a ramp shooting board, you know, you might stretch it out to 1 1/16 inches, because if you're planing like this, right? You're going, well, it wouldn't be, obviously it couldn't be in that angle, but as you move along like that, you're using more of the blade. All right. If you ignore the extra time involved in making that ramp, what are you gaining? Well, you're using more of your blade, so you're going to get more life out of it. If you go to my video that's entitled 32 Seconds to Sharp, that answers that question. These blades can be sharpened so quickly, it's just not worth it. Not worth the hassle of making that, and I just don't think that's, I mean, if you want to do it for fun, go ahead. But I don't think it's worth the, I don't think you're gaining enough. So I don't use them. Next, Frick.
Next one comes from Bob in Ridgefield, Connecticut.
Hey, Bob.
Is there any advantage to owning your 24-inch shooting board over the 18-inch version? I just ordered the 24-inch version, and it looks a bit longer than I envisioned on the website.
Well, I actually went out and I went over to the shop to bring over an 18-inch. So it's the same shooting board, it's the same width. What you gain is I can comfortably use my shooting board from about right here. So on, shoot, where's my measure? There it is. Well, it's not mine, but I'll reuse it. So on my 24-inch, I can shoot 15 inches comfortably. You get out here and then you're having to balance and it's just a little bit awkward. So from about right there, I could stretch that out, 15 inches. So on this one, that same, well, obviously, what was this? That's 24, and this is...
9 inches. 6 inches left. Right.
So I could get 9, right, yeah. I knew there was a... I knew there was an answer to that, Moose.
Put that date down.
So I can't think of any reason, unless you're in really cramped quarters, why you would choose an 18, but I think it's our most popular selling one, the 18. Oh, by the way, I have to, oh no, I won't do it yet. I'm gonna wait for some more people to come. Got a really, really, really nice thing to read you from one of our recent vets and show you some stuff that he sent that everyone will benefit that comes to the class. Next, Frick.
I got a question from Austin Kraft, who's in the chat.
Austin
Kraft.
Kraft. Hi, Austin. Where is he from?
I'll get him to tell us in the chat here, but he wants to know if a shooting plane is worth the money.
Yeah, so I knew this was going to come up, and I was prepared. If you've watched me work on any of the videos that we do, not so much on, if you watch us on the online workshop, that's more realistic. When we're shooting on a YouTube video, we have just what we need, and we try to present it as unencumbered as possible. On the online workshop, if you don't know what that is, we started that, Jake and I and Frick, 3 of us?
Yep.
Started that in 2011. And we used to shoot an episode a day, 5 days a week. And we would take you through the process of building various pieces of furniture. Well, that schedule, from about 2017, we stopped doing that, started doing it 3 times a week. So 3 45-minute episodes each week, and we build various pieces of furniture. What we're working on right now is finishing off the base cabinets of this long project we've been doing. So if you watch in there, you'll notice that my bench fills up really quickly. There's always stuff going on, and it's an involved process. No matter what you're doing, you're using several items. I designed this to make it very convenient to put something back. Everything has its spot. I know where it is when I go to reach it. But a lot of times you're using a half a dozen tools at any given time. I say that because this. If you had a designated shooting board plane, and they look something like this, that's the only thing it does, is a shooting board. Where would I put this? I use my shooting board, I can't tell you how many times, but it's probably the most used shop implement that I have. I use the same plane on that I use on everything else, which is my 5.5. I can't imagine having the space on a bench. I would have to have a separate bench set up, but then you're having to drag your work over to there. So as cool as I think this particular shooting board is, would I spend the money to go out and buy one of those? No, I don't think so, because I wouldn't use it. It requires too much space that I don't have. And it's not that I don't have the space, but that's not my thing. I'm very much into what I'm doing, and you get into that mode to have to go and walk over there every time you want to shoot something, that just wouldn't work. And to have a designated plane for just that purpose, no. Yeah, it's not a dollars and cents question. I think they're $500 or $600. I could spend that $500 or $600. If I was advising somebody, I'd say, well, you know what? For that $500 or $600, get yourself a couple more planes or a couple more saws or a couple more chisels that you'll get a lot more mileage out of than a designated shooting board plane. Buy one if you want, but that wouldn't be my advice. Good question. Always comes up frequently.
He was from Georgia, by the way.
It comes up second only to Rob needs a haircut.
That is true.
Yeah. Well, I'm going for the I'm going for the hockey flow. See if it does anything to improve my game. Certainly couldn't hurt it. What'd you say, Frick?
He was from,
He's from Georgia?
He was from Georgia.
Georgia. Georgia on my mind. Next, Frick.
Next one comes from Dan in Culpeper, Virginia.
Hey, Dan.
What is the best method for modifying the shooting board to clean up 45-degree miters?
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
What is the best method for modifying the shooting board to clean up 45-degree miters?
One more time.
What is the best method for modifying the shooting board to clean up 45-degree miters?
What they're asking is once you chop it on a chop saw, is there some sort of square, 45 miter, you can put on that to create a 45? So instead of having...
Oh, instead of having a designated 45?
I think,
Well, again,
I think that's what they're asking.
That goes back to that thing of, can you make it solid? If you can figure out a way to put an apparatus on there that is solid, yes. Our answer was to make a designated 45-degree shooting board. We actually have a special big heavy-duty 45-degree rail, left and right, that Willie made for us, that we dial in, and we use it specifically to make that so that that is right on 45 degrees. So if you could add, I mean, I've seen people just take a piece of 45-degree, piece of plywood, cut 45 degrees, and add that in, and I suppose you could do that as well. I'm sure you could do that. I was just going to say something important. Oh, so if you're a combat wounded vet that's on tonight, and if you've been to one of our classes, in other words, if you're a Purple Heart Scholarship combat wounded vet, give a shout out. Who's going to watch for that, Frick?
I think Gina is. She told me John Beck is here.
Oh, Gina. Okay, Gina. So they want to put in the chat. Gina at Gina?
At Gina. Yeah.
And that would be the @ symbol, correct?
Yep.
At Gina, and then their name and the class that they were in. I'd love to give you a shout out. So John Beck.
Yep.
So John was here in May or June?
Last class.
May.
June.
Also known as Santa Claus. John was a Vietnam vet. And so if you go on our website, RobCosman.com, underneath the Purple Heart banner, Wall of Heroes, John's before and after pictures on there. So Luther does that. So all the guys that come to the class, we've got a few missing, give us their current picture and then a picture of them in their battle rattle, which is another way of saying their military garb back when they were serving. And John's on there, so you can check out John. Nice to see you, John. And Danny Bell's here. Danny Bell's here. You can see Danny too. I think his picture, he's in a Chinook.
Mm-hmm. It's in Afghanistan.
Much younger version.
Jeff O'Connor's here as well.
And Jeffrey.
Twinkle Toes.
Twinkle Toes. Jeff O'Connor. Who's on his arm? Ben Franklin?
Yeah.
George.
George W. George Washington.
George Washington.
Yeah,
Weren't we just talking the other day that George's head is shrinking?
The original George W. Well, it's saddlebags and a shrinking head.
Oh.
Jeff will get it.
So Jeff retired in December 31st as an EOD, Navy EOD. That's the guy that diffuses bombs. And Jeff makes these kiss sticks. These are made out of cocobolo. This probably had something to do with his 10 years as a Chicago policeman. But it's a lovely piece of cocobolo, and as I've often said, the only time you wouldn't like cocobolo is if somebody hit you with that. He also does the shave brushes, which are very popular, which will be given away tonight, so we'll mention that a little bit later. Is Kevin on?
Yep, Kevin Burris is here.
Kevin Burris. Check out Kevin Burris. I just gave Kevin a big shout out in our Instagram, which, by the way, if you're not one of our Instagram follower, we try to put a lot of really interesting stuff out there. And how do they find that, Frick? Is it RobCosman.com?
No.
No?
I don't know if there's a link from RobCosman.com, but if you look up Rob Cosman Hand Tool Woodworking on Instagram, you can follow us that way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
we just
you can read about Kev.
Just hit 20,000 followers, so thank you for everybody.
We're at 22 now.
No, 20.
22,200.
Yes,
20,200.
Yeah.
So Kevin does these as one of the things that he does. These are laser engraved on slate. And shoot, I took it upstairs. Oh, I got one out here. I got one out here. Did I take that upstairs? No, that's out here. I want to show them this.
Oh, walk over with it.
Keep talking.
Can't talk, you're
Oh
the
yeah, it's
talent.
right here. Can he come out here, Frick?
Well, we could try.
Or can you tell if we're still on?
We are.
So, are we still on?
Yep.
I asked Kevin to do this for me. So if you've got something really important, like a date that really is important and for you, or a mission statement, or a mantra, whatever it is. So I wanted one for our mission statement for the Purple Heart Project, but I don't want it on paper. I didn't even want it on wood. What's more permanent than being carved in stone? Danny Bill, answer that.
Nothing.
So this is a piece of 24 by 12 inch by about 3/8, maybe 7/16 inch thick slate. And this is laser engraved into it. So that is our mission statement. We've got one for our business mission statement. And then we've got another one upstairs in my office that has more to do with our business goals. I'm just going to give you, if you still got him?
Yep.
Okay, so my wife and Erica, my daughter, and Anita worked all day yesterday, just do a pan, to get the shop all ready. So the benches are all in place. We got a few things to move. We have a bunch of girls and boys. We got some bells. We got some Wetmores.
Some meese.
We
Some meat.
got some old moose.
Moose actual.
So check out Jeff. You can find Jeff at o'connorwoodworking.com, and you can find Kevin at Burris, B-U-R-A-S, woodworking.com.
Okay, I'm going to mention some more really quick, but we have to move on. Farron Pinkham is here.
Pinky?
Jim Eakin is here.
Jim Eakin.
Pinky was just in our recent class.
And Jerry Pickering is here.
And Jerry Pickering. Well, I'm going to talk about Jerry in a minute. How many we got on tonight, Frick?
We got 437 right now.
All right, let's do it now. So Jerry Pickering was a Vietnam medic.
Just a second. Before you say that, are we giving away...
Is he interrupting me now?
Yes. For once. Are we giving away anything tonight?
Is anybody going to say anything about that?
No. They're all going to side with me.
Yes, we're giving away. Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
we're doing a draw.
So we're doing it. No, we're doing a draw on Thursday night.
Okay. So no prize tonight.
So no prizes tonight, but we'll combine donations tonight with donations on Thursday night, and then we'll give away one. We'll do plaques, and we're going to add to what you can get done on the plaque. You can get a mission statement if you want, or a family crest, whatever, and shave brush. So for every $1,000, we give away one of those, your choice on the woods. So Jerry Pickering was in our class in May, and as I said, Jerry was a medic, a combat medic in Vietnam. And I'm going to ask Danny, you can't see him, but you can hear him, just to give you a little background on what a medic does.
So Jerry, being a Special Forces medic.
Wait, hold on just a second. Is his mic working?
Yep.
Okay, good, sorry.
Special Forces medic, so he's highly trained. He's got a lot of trauma experience. And his experience brought him down in an aircraft with other people. They crashed, and after sewing up his own face on the ground, he sewed up a friend and helped carry his friend out of the jungle. So they literally, it's E&E, they call it E&E, it's escape and evade for, I don't remember if it was over a day, and then they were able to get him out. But since then, Jerry went through multiple surgeries to get himself fixed back up and continued on with his life. But really an incredible story to hear somebody tell.
So the other thing I learned about medics is, if danger's over there, everybody runs this way, but the medics run that way. So, and if you've ever seen Band of Brothers, on that beach, the medics are the guys that are helping those who have been hit. Really, we have had several medics in our class. So Danny just arrived today. So let me just fill you in what's going on. So Danny and his wife and his two girls came up because Jake's away, goofing off, So Danny came in to take Jake's place this week in our class, and which included tonight being our cameraman, and he brought this present to me. So if you all know that my love affair with MASH, so Klinger was a huge fan of the Toledo Mud Hens. So in honor of Jerry, I'm switching hats tonight. I'm wearing my Mud Hens hat. I actually got to go see the Mud Hens when I was doing a wood show in. They weren't in.
Buffalo, maybe?
No,
Toledo.
they weren't in Toledo. They were playing wherever we were. But anyway, I got to see the Mud Hens. That was pretty cool. So I just want to read you what Jerry said. It's a little bit long, but I'm going to go through it quickly. And Jerry, your handwriting is a little
like a
better than
doctor
mine.
should
Yeah,
be.
just like a doctor should be, right? Rob, thank you. These words seem so inadequate to convey the gratitude I feel for all the things you, your team, and the people are the people that are watching, who donate to make my visit possible. I find myself sitting in the quiet of the shop, my aging garage actually, and being overwhelmed by the gifts. I run my hands over the handles of the chisels or the totes on my planes. The generosity of so many in both comforting and a reminder I'm not alone. The only words I can find are thank you, Rob, for making it all possible. Luther for keeping it real. Jake for providing access to the store. Very important role.
Actually, Jake didn't do it. I was here. Jake.
Yeah, he gets credit for nothing. Danny for making me look inside and see the potential. Kim for being the adult, herding all the participants, kids, and mostly Rob, to make it all work. And lastly, Maggie. Now, Maggie, where's Maggie?
Mila, can you go find Maggie?
Yeah.
Maggie!
I think she's outside.
Maggie! Can you go get Maggie and bring Maggie in? She's got a role here. So this is really cool because we've had several vets come with service dogs, and Kevin Burris could tell you all about this. So when I first met Kev, he would come up with Super Dave. Is Super Dave on tonight?
I don't see him, no.
Another slacker. Jake gives everybody the night off. So Kev came and did the wood shows with us. I mean, Kevin's a badly beat up, blown up, wounded vet. But he has a dog. His service dog, his name is Bella. Kevin, as a result of his injuries, ended up with diabetes and a whole bunch of problems. And the dog would come over. If the dog could tell if his blood sugar was getting too low or too high, and the dog would come over and just start pestering him and wouldn't leave him alone until it drew his attention. If Kevin was getting agitated, the dog would come over and he would lay his just the most unbelievable what these animals have an innate sense, I think. So Maggie, I just noticed that Maggie would come in. Maggie's a really nice dog. She's about to move away because my daughter Kenzie is moving to Calgary to study to be an equine therapist. And she's taking Maggie with her. Come here, Mag. Come here, Maggie. Maggie, over here. Did I mention obedient? I hope I didn't.
Not to you.
See if you can corral Maggie over here. So Maggie is help me out here.
Golden Doodle?
An Australian miniature golden doodle. And she's got a very nice temperament. But she would be in here during the week with the class, and she would just make her rounds, and she would just I always see them petting her, and she provides such a calming influence to these vets. So here's Maggie. Say hi, Mag. Mitch brought her in. Maggie there? There's Maggie. So I wanted to hear, so I'll just read you what he says. And lastly, Maggie, for showing up when I need that special companion understanding only a dog can provide. So just thank you for giving me a life again, one in which I can go out into the big bad world, knowing there is a quiet place waiting with special tools from special people when I return from downrange. James Krenoff summed it up well in his book, A Cabinet Maker's Notebook, when he said, I stand by my bench, shavings curl from the plane in my hands, swish and slide as I rock to the motion of the work. the smell of fresh cut wood, a slick, silvery yellow surface gleaming under the tireless plane, and a feeling of contentment. Nothing is wrong. Here I am. Here is my work. For this piece, I will be forever grateful. Sincerely, Jerry Pickering. Jerry, so well said. And I wanted to read that to you. I got permission from Jerry to read that because I wanted you people that donate to the Purple Heart Project, which really enable us to be able to do it, to understand the impact of what you do. It doesn't go unnoticed, and it makes a huge result in their life. So Jerry being a medic, and we had a guy in our class. His name was Scott, and Scott was Special Forces in Iraq, driving in the front passenger seat of an up-armored Humvee.
Yep.
Or before it was up-armored.
I think it was up armored.
Anyway, after the blast, I saw a picture. So if you had a rectangle of wreckage, take this front quarter out, it's gone. That's where he was sitting. So Scott was severely wounded, both legs above the knee, arm. If I remember correctly, the arm was still inside the sleeve, and they were able to sew it back on. It was multiple surgeries before they spent how many, 2.5 years at Walter Reed in limb salvage.
Bones still aren't attached. His bones
Yeah. But it's perfect now for cutting a 10-degree slope and a dovetail. That's another story. But anyway, poor Scott was in a wheelchair. His height, his knuckle height, seemed to be just perfect for everything sticking out. So he was bloodied constantly. So Scott, not Scott, but Jerry sewed him up numerous times. So Jerry sent us a med kit. So as you open it up, there's various tags. So this first pouch contains boo-boos. The second pouch contains small cuts. The third pouch contains larger material for larger cuts, and I like this one. This one is someone is going to the hospital. This would be Frick.
Yeah.
So we've got all of our gear in here. This will be well used, well serviced. Thank you, Jerry. What a wonderful gift, and we will put that to good work. That is Jerry Pickering. And when a combat wounded vet, particularly a Vietnam vet, applies to our program, they get preferential treatment, almost guaranteed to get into the class. We recognize that they did not come home to a hero's welcome that they deserved, and we're trying to make that right. So, any other combat wounded vets I need to say hello to that are on?
Not yet.
Okay, you find them, let me know. Next question, please, Frick.
Before the next question, David Olofsson wanted to see if you could show a close-up of the rebate on your shooting board.
David in BC?
Possibly.
Olofsson.
Olofsson, yeah.
Yeah, David's a good guy. He's in my class a long time ago. So there's a little rebate or rabbit, depending on which country you're in. So I'll tell you the measurement. It's up there about 3/16 of an inch. And in this direction, it's 1/16 of an inch. So I'm going to try to hold it steady for Danny. Sorry, Dan.
No, you're fine.
So can you get right here?
I'm getting right there, right.
That's what it does.
Let me get down here. Come on, right there.
So this part is always riding below the blade, so it never gets disturbed. And we always have the fence the fence right here pulled back enough so that it doesn't get clipped by the blade. Because if it does, it starts breaking out pieces in the backside. Okay? If you want to, when you make these, you can saturate this area right here with cyanacrylate. If you don't know what cyanacrylate is, it's super glue made specifically for wood. You don't want medium, you don't want thick. Of course, I can't find the one I want. There's one that has a consistency, there it is right there. Thin. You can just let that wick in there, and what it'll do is it'll really better, but you're not going to wear that out anytime soon. Okay, next, Rick.
All right, next one comes from Ernie in Indiana.
Hey, Ernie.
Would 1-inch thick Corian make a good shooting board?
Well, it's really heavy. Here's my how my things roll. I'm constantly taking this keeping it right there. It's very close, sliding it in, and it's up here when being used, and it's back and forth. So would I want this to weigh an extra 20 pounds? No. It's nice and convenient. I don't know if I would use Corian. I don't have any problem with this. If there's a secret to it, when we make these, this piece of plywood is glued to this piece of MDF, and we glue it over a small form so that it comes out with a slight curve. Here's the reason why. If you put your shooting board on and there's a slight bow like this, because of the shape of your plane, the minute you lift it up, the minute this is raised up any little bit, and what would happen is if your shooting board is bowed like this, then it's going to touch at this end. Right? And what's going to occur is it's going to tip out like that, so you no longer have a square setup. However, if you do it the other way, so it creates a bit of a hill, so now it's going to be high in the middle, that doesn't interrupt. Because of the width of the middle part, that does not interrupt the square setup you have here. So we purposely make it so that there's a slight bump in the middle. If anything, when you're using your shooting board and you're putting pressure down like that, you're going to flatten it out. But if you're doing it like this, if it's got that in it, you just can't work with it. So instead, we purposely do it the other way. So 3/4 MDF, 1/2 inch Baltic birch, seems to work just wonderfully. Next, Frick.
Next one comes from Dan in Ireland.
Dan in Ireland.
Yep. Do you have any?
So we have, is that the Dan that's coming to the class? Couldn't be. He's on an airplane right now.
Well, this isn't from the chat, right? This was submitted on Wednesday.
I don't know if it's. We have a wounded vet from Ireland that's coming to the class. Luther actually is on his way down to Bangor, Maine to pick him up. He gets in tonight, and then they'll bring him up tomorrow. You'll meet him Thursday night. Go ahead. I don't know if it's the same one.
Do you have any plans to make a shooting board that holds the plane at 45 degrees of the bed of the shooting board?
Yes. Yeah. So what he's talking about is if you're building a cabinet and you're mitering together your sides, top of the side and the top and miter together, then what you need to have is a miter that would hold, or a shooting board that would hold your board 45 degrees like that. So when you plane across the end, you'd end up with a nice clean miter. Yes, we will. There's X number of hours in a day. And we try to get, obviously you try to get to the stuff that has the biggest demand and the most need. And then as you work your way through that, you can branch out and do other things. Right now, we're working on, sometime in the next 2 weeks, we're going to release our scrapers, card scrapers. I think we have 2 or 3 different sizes and tools that we developed that make it a lot easier to actually prepare them. You're going to like that. What else are we working on? Oh, I'm not supposed to say this stuff because then I get in trouble. Just because Gina gets overloaded with questions. So we're working on stuff all the time. Next, Frick.
Jason R. Brown in California.
Big shout out to Gina. She's on tonight. So remember, if you're a combat wounded vet, it's been in our class. If you're one of the 109 that have been through our program, love to hear from you and give you a shout out. So at Gina and your name and what class you were in. Sorry, Frick, go ahead.
Jason R. Brown in California.
Hey, Jason.
Your mitered shooting board is great for flat miters, but what if the miter is angled the other way, a long miter? How do you do that?
That's the one we just talked about.
Okay.
That's the one we just talked about. We will make one. It's going to be a little bit awkward because now you've got to hold a piece that might be 20 inches wide and up at an angle, or make it so that the plane is sitting on an angle. We'll work out the details on that. We'll get it.
All right, Jeff in New Braunfels, Texas.
Hey, Jeff.
What are the practical considerations for the size of shooting board needed?
Well, what are the practical considerations? How would I come up with 24 inches? I suppose one would be the convenience of being able to handle it. You know, if that thing was 36 inches long, that would be really awkward. If it was only 12 inches long, it wouldn't be very useful. Although we do make a little one like this for using with a block plane. So I typically have mine reaching from one side of my bench to the other. As far as the width goes, you know, you could always use it wider because it supports the work. But the problem is, again, it's cumbersome to move. So I have another little piece right here that actually works on a different shooting board. And I'll put that in somewhere, but that needs to be exactly the same as that so that it'll hold the other side. If I have a long piece, I'll just get something this wide to put underneath it to keep it level. So the width, I think that's 12 inches, and it works out well in materials when we make these, but it also seems to be a convenient size to work with. You know, if it's, as I mentioned, I think I can get, I can cut or plane the end of a 15-inch board. So how often are you working with a board that's more than 15 inches? Probably not very. And if it is, I actually have a couple over here, really big shooting boards. I keep them over here because they don't get used very often, but they have a much greater capacity, but cumbersome to use. So question would, the way to answer that question would be, what do you typically make? I make mostly house furniture, so that seems to work really well for it. If you were doing something you were consistently having to deal with pieces that were 24 inches wide, then you would have to make a shooting board made specifically for that. Next, Frick. You don't know what's going on behind the camera. We have all these munchkins that are moving around. They're sneaky.
Ah, there's one.
That guy has no teeth. Where's your teeth? You lost them? We'll go find them.
All right, John Liba or Liba
Hi, John.
in Cornwall, New York, USA.
In Cornwall, New York.
Yep.
Don't know where that is.
Some shooting boards are built so the plane is captured in a track. What is your opinion of this?
So on this original Stanley, there is a track, another piece of steel right here that's adjustable, by the way, so that when you put your shooting board in, you can squeeze this over so there's no side-to-side slop, which is a nice feature. However, I wouldn't call it necessary for the simple reason that I've never built that into one of these. It would be a little bit difficult because all you would have is that little bit of registration area over there, which is not going to give you a whole lot of help in keeping it in line. This one, you'll see, has the same width all the way, so there's lots of registration. If you learn this, you wouldn't need that. When you use your shooting board, a couple things you have to be, no, not actually, there's several things. You got to keep your plane standing plumb. You can't lean it over or let it fall off to that side. So I always have my hand right over the widest part. If you think about it, these really weren't designed for working on their side. They don't have a whole lot of surface area, but there's enough. So I keep my hand right here, and I'm always aware of it being plumb. Make sure my blade is parallel to the sole. So, of course, you're pushing forward and pulling back. The board you're working on, the action of the plane is going to keep it tight to the fence. You need to put a little bit of downward pressure to keep it from popping up, especially if it's really long. If it's really long, you're going to want something back here to prop it up. You've got to keep the board fed into the plane, so you're constantly pushing in this direction. What you have to remember is you can't push this way harder than you're pushing this that way. The minute you allow this to pull away from this track, you're going to lose that square setup. So 60% force here, 40% there, and you go ahead and process your wood. And all that, you know, it doesn't take that long. By the time these guys are done this week, that will all have married in, and every time you pick it up, you're just going to do it without even thinking about it. So no, you don't need a track. Have I ever tried to develop one for one of these? No, no. Simply because I wouldn't say it's a problem, a solution looking for a problem, but close. And by the way, since we're on the topic, the best plane of all for your shooting board is a big number 8. And the reason is 2. It's nice to be able to get a run at the board. You can't start back here because you run in the risk of either missing or hitting the side. So you have to engage with the sole of the plane, but the more distance you have from here to here, the more you get to have a good run at it before that blade engages and starts to cut. And it's going to be easier the longer this is. Second, the weight. You've got lots of mass here. This thing weighs more than 10 pounds. So by the time that blade hits there, it's moving at such a speed that that'll carry right through that board. I could have done it a little bit easier than that, couldn't I? Cutting a little chamfer first. Cut right through that board with very little resistance. The 5.5 obviously is shorter, it's not as long, and it doesn't weigh as much. But I like to use the same plane in my shooting board that I use on my bench. And that would be too cumbersome for general purpose work, whereas this is just the right size. Thanks to David Charlesworth for turning me on to a 5.5 way back in about 2002. Rest in peace, David. Next, Frick.
So Michael Burns made a suggestion if you would set a target amount for donations to shave your head on a live show.
Wow.
What's the number?
There isn't a number. What is it about my locks that's got everybody so worked up? Jealousy.
They're not great.
Aaron in the chat says, why not have a rail on the shooting board to create a track for the plane to ride in so it cannot come away from the work?
That's one we just talked about.
Yeah.
It's just, it's something that once you use it, you will develop to the point where you don't even need, you don't think about it, you don't even need it. So it just uncomplicates the process a little bit. It really isn't a big issue at all. Promise. Hi, Mickey. Do something about sneaking under the camera. Next, Frick.
Second. Pete Ambrose and Gary Burnett are here.
Pete! And Gary Burnett.
Gary Burnett.
Gary, big shout out from Danny Bell. So, got to talk about these guys for a minute. Both of these guys are Vietnam vets. Pete Ambrose actually stuck around and fought in the first Gulf War as well. And Pete Ambrose is one of my favorites, as is Gary. Gary and Danny are very good friends. So I know Gary really felt it when Danny and his family moved to Maine, but unfortunately sometimes life takes us in different paths. Both really good guys. Great to have you on. Next, Fred.
Paul Bedell in the chat says, if Rob is shooting the end of a longer piece, does he use bench hooks to keep things lined up? Basically, how to keep a longer piece aligned against the fence.
Yeah. Just the easiest way is the absolute easiest way. Oh, by the way, let me throw a few more things in here. My clamps. If I'm going to be doing a lot of shooting, I will take a clamp and clamp this in place. Oh, by the way, we are. You know what? We could give away. We'll give away 3 dead cats tonight, and then we'll do another 3 on Thursday.
I didn't put the link for the draw.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
Well, all right then. We'll give them away Thursday night. Everybody in here knows what a dead cat sweater is. Warmest garment you'll ever find. We don't have it hanging up anymore.
Mike's outside.
Yes, please. He didn't take it.
He's coming down later.
So I'll show you that in just a second. If I'm doing a lot of shooting, I like to clamp my shooting board in place. It's just one less thing to move around on me. Do you want to model that, Moose? No. Actually, you have an option when we do this. Thursday night, we'll give away 3 dead cats. It's really light. It's warm. It's unbelievably warm. Chris will attest to that. It's got the Purple Heart logo on there, or the Moose's. You only wish you looked that good in that shirt. Moose's blue golf shirt. Comes with an improved handicap. I like to clamp this in place just because it makes it a little bit easier. Your question was about really long boards. Really comes in handy that way. The simplest way to do that is simply to find a piece of wood the same height and just stick it over there somewhere to help hold it in place. If you're having a hard time keeping it tight to that, which I really don't think I've ever dealt with that, as long as it's balanced, it's supported on this end, you should be able to manipulate it. But if you want, you can do what I did, I showed you, just make another piece. If you're making your own shooting board, make it a little bit longer, just rip. And that cleat will hold it in place. A shooting board is going to work 98% of the time. But I always teach my guys in the class, guys and gals that take it, when we learn to dimension a piece of lumber, they get to use the shooting board to square one end, the other one has to be done by hand. Because there will be that time when you cannot take the wood to the tool, you have to take the tool to the wood. All part of knowing how to work wood. Next, Rick.
Jonathan Walsh in the chat was wondering,
Hey, Jonathan.
what a new person to shooting board should know if they have no prior experience. Like the first time they
What should he know about a shooting board?
Well, like what advice would you give?
Just back up a little bit. All that part I told you about where you hold your hand, what plane to use. You want the 5.5. You want them to be square. By the way, when we sell, this is a bit of a pitch. When we sell Wood River planes, anywhere but into the U.S., sorry, part of an agreement, we go in and we square up the sides. We make sure that the sides are square to our specs. So when you use it on your shooting board, you're guaranteed it's going to be a square setup. Now, you still have to go in there and make sure that the blade is parallel to the sole. It's no good if the blade is sticking out more on one side than the other. It's just not going to work. So you got to sight down there and get that right. But you also want it to be standing plumb when it's in that position. But all the things I told you about how to use it, your force, remember? You're pushing forward, pulling back, you're keeping it standing plumb, you're keeping it tight to the fence so that when your board is here, your board you don't never push this harder than you're pushing this in that direction so that you don't take away that square setup. You're getting two advantages from this. You're getting a square setup in plan view like this, and you're also getting a square setup like this. Such an advantage to be able to take that board out and know that it is square this way and it is square that way without even having to check. I've often said, this is the one shop-made implement that will do more to improve or elevate your work than anything else once you've learned how to use and sharpen a hand plane. Can't live without it. Cannot live without it. Next, Rick. We have time for a few more anyway.
Yeah.
Because we don't have any closing ceremonies. Anything else I forgot? I forgot to say hello to Angie. Oh, by the way, Angie and Lynn, I think I'm okay in saying this, Angie's caregiver came down with COVID last week. So we had our fingers crossed. Angie's in a very fragile predicament, so that could be very dangerous for her. But that's Angie. Angie and her sister Lynn do all the packaging of our t-shirts, our Purple Heart t-shirts. So if you get one and it's nicely packaged, there'll be a little picture that comes along with it, and that is Angie. That's Bob, who was a World War II, surviving World War II vet. He was a tail gunner in a Liberator and got shot down at least once over Italy. Captured, but freed a couple months later. And a woodworker. I would love, Bob, if you're watching, I would love to get you in one of our classes. We would be honored. We actually have a World War II vet coming to the class in October. But he had one stipulation. He had to be able to bring his daughter with him. I think she's 75. That will be something else. Anything else I'm forgetting? Ken, is Ken on tonight?
Yep.
Ken Anthony. Angie is Ken's cousin. Ken is the manager of our shop. He makes sure everything works, and I could not do it without him. He has the skills that I don't have. And probably his biggest asset to us is, I'm terrible at teaching somebody else how to do something because you get into this mindset you're the only one that can do it. And Ken would bug me to get him to show him how, and he'd turn around and show all them. So most everybody over there knows how to do every procedure thanks to Ken. Big plus. He understands delegation. I don't. Next, Frick.
A question. What is the surface finish on your shooting board? Is it lacquer?
Lacquer. 2 coats of lacquer. Yeah.
Okay.
Rick and Harold spray the lacquer. Harold makes all the shooting boards, by the way. Harold Snodgrass. Harold's a retired cabinet maker that came to work here 2 years ago. And Harold knows precision, which is big bonus.
Oberon in Ontario.
Oberon?
Yeah, I think that's how you say his name. Is there a way to check that your shooting board is set 100% square without buying a $10,000 Starrett square?
Yeah. So how would I do that? Well, you don't need a $10,000
You go to RobCosman, you buy
you buy one of our shooting
square.
boards. Or a piece. Yeah, that's right. So that Starrett square of mine, that's a 12-inch Starrett square. And I think they list for $700 or $800. I bought mine used, $700 or $800. Crazy. But we carry PEC. And PEC, their 12-inch steel square is just over $100. And we've checked them by putting one square in the middle of the other like this, and you couldn't pull a 1,000 shim out anywhere along there. So really good value. So if you're looking for and it's such a handy thing to have a big square like that. Dig me out one more question, Frick, and part of my closing statement is I want to tell you this. If you're either into hand tool woodworking, or you're transitioning into hand tool woodworking, or you're a power tool woodworker and kind of looking at this and saying, you know what, I think this would be really interesting. Learning to cut dovetails by hand, learn to sharpen, use a hand plane, and be able to finish a piece of wood without any sandpaper. Get yourself a good plane, and a good plane means you don't go to a big box store. You're not going to get a good plane. You have to spend some money to get a really good plane. That's just the name of the game. And learn how to sharpen. I tell people this all the time, go to that 32 seconds to sharp. That's not clickbait. That's how long it takes to sharpen a plane bait. Get the right equipment. You notice that there's always a $sign attached to this, because you're not going to go out and buy junk and get the results that you want. It doesn't happen that way. It doesn't happen that way with a vehicle. It doesn't happen that way with just about anything. Get your good gear, sharpening gear, get your good plane, and then as soon as you learn that, get a shooting board. And I promise you, it will improve your work beyond anything else. You want to be able to make drawers that fit with that piston fit? That all starts with a shooting board. It's an essential tool. One last question, Frick.
Yeah. Where was I? Just saw it.
Any more vets to say a shout out?
Nope. Joseph Bushnell in the chat says, would you use plain wax on your shooting board?
Yes, I do. Yeah. So thanks to Kev, who introduced us to this product. I always come in and I'll just throw a couple of strikes on the side and a couple in the face, and but now it starts to get a little bit gunky. So every once in a while, I'll take my square and I'll just simply run it like this, and just to get rid of that buildup of wax and dirt. You don't want stuff gathering up in there, because it'll hold your plane away from resting tight against that fence. Was Bob Abbott on?
I didn't see him, no.
Robert's not around? Okay, so this Thursday, what time are we on? What time do we normally go on? Same, 8 o'clock?
Yeah, 7 Eastern.
7 Eastern. So at 7 Eastern Thursday night, we're going to do the second half, and we're going to go out there and we'll talk to the guys that are in the class. You'll get to meet them, feel like you're part of it, and it'll be fun. And we'll also have our big draw.
If you want to follow along the whole week, make sure to follow us on Instagram. We'll be posting.
Yeah, Frick will come in and do Instagram posts, quite little short videos quite often. So follow us on Instagram at look it up.
Rob
whatever you
Cosman _ hand tool woodworking.
There
Just
you
look up Rob Cosman.
How many
you'll see it.
people do we have on?
512, but only 178 have hit the like button. So please, everybody else, hit the like button.
Maybe they didn't like it.
Well, pretend they do.
Show Danny some love. Oh, I love the camera work. Tell us about, and big thank you to Danny for stepping up. We went out in the boat today. We took he and his family and Luther out on the pontoon boat, and it was beautiful weather. We got back here. Danny had all of about 10 minutes to learn how to use the camera, so I think he did a wonderful job. We'll bring him back Thursday.
Oh, Mark Smith's with us, by the way.
Oh, Mark is.
Yep.
Mark's up in Ontario. So Mark is a combat wounded vet that did a ton of work for us here when he was living in Gagetown. And then his wife joined the military as well. She went off, left him home with the children. She went off to basic training up in Ontario. And then Mark moved up there as well. So great to hear from you, Mark. Okay, folks, thanks for joining us. Appreciate your support. You heard the letter tonight from Jerry, and can't add anything to that. This program really works. It performs miracles for these people, and I have no idea how or why. But I do know wood is good, and I remember who was a carpenter. So anyway, wish us good luck this week. We will see you on Thursday night. Have a good one.